Kenneth, I'm here for Singapore Maritime Week and DCSA board meetings, and I thought it was a great opportunity to sit with you in your role of Assistant Chief Executive of MPA to talk about digitalization in shipping, one of my favorite topics. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Andre, and welcome to Singapore and Singapore Maritime Week.
Kenneth, Singapore, one of the smallest countries in Asia, yet one of the biggest transshipment hubs. Can you tell us a little bit more about why that is?
You know, Singapore is geographically limited in size. We are about 710 square kilometers, very small, and also about 5 million in population. But on the other hand, we are situated in a strategic location in Asia. So about 30% of the global trade actually passes through this part of the region. We have a very big ambition to serve the global supply chain. Here we are becoming a big transshipment hub, a big bunkering hub, as well as an attractive international maritime center.
That's a lot for such a small, a small city, a small country, city country. It's funny because I remember when we inaugurated our offices here in 1996, our first regional office actually here in Singapore, and we had, I think, 4 people. Today we have over 200 people with two offices, the regional and our agency office. And it's incredible to see how things have grown, how the city has developed, and particularly the digital impact, I think, overall is very impressive. Considering those limitations, how has digitalization helped you to grow and thrive?
You know, Andrea, many may think that digitalization is a good to have tool, but to Singapore, we view digitalization as part of the essential pathway to our survival strategy. And let me explain why. Because we are a small country and many of these businesses are also has this very limited domestic demand. The companies can use digitalization to start trading with the rest of the world. Secondly, I think digitalization is also a force multiplier, right? Because while investing into our Tuas port, we need to have the tools to also provide efficiency and proficiency in terms of handling containers.
I love your expression that it's a survival strategy. When we look at the growing population, we look at the growing volumes of goods to be carried and, of course, to be transshipped, as you mentioned, the 30%. How do we cope with this? The container was invented in the 50s. That hasn't changed much. Smart containers, perhaps. The vessels aren't going to grow much larger, in my opinion. So digitalization is really one of the only ways to absorb all that volume.
Yes.
So I think this is something that as MSC we've recognized as a priority and part of why we're having this conversation today.
Indeed.
Kenneth, can you perhaps give us some examples of projects and digital projects that are very specific to Singapore?
Sure. In the area of smart port, we actually get our researcher to come to model the digital twin. In fact, we set up a center called the Center for Next Generation Port. So they use simulation and optimization simultaneously. So they can model the digital twin of the 65 million TEUs. So in fact, Tuas Port is going to be a fully automated port terminal. So we have done many of these auto-guided vehicles. And of course, researchers are also now using robotics to try coning, deconing automatically. And lately, we have just rolled out e-bunkering, right, or EBL, many of these documentation. And we're also thinking that it should be not just only within the port waters, but also connected to other ports, which is why we are also using digitalization to pioneer the green and digital corridor as well.
A very important topic, and it was on my list of questions to you. I understand the concept, but can you explain a little bit more about the project and the impact it has on the trade?
Yes. We know that the whole decarbonization journey takes time in its transition period, and therefore it is important to focus on pathways of from port to port, how a net zero fuel can actually be supplied, and then how the vessel could then take the cargo all the way to the next port. So we have added not just green or digital by itself, but combining both of them, green and digital, so that all your documentation, your paper flow, all can be digitalized. You can make use of AI or digitalization to do voyage planning or voyage optimization.
Yeah, you mentioned the EBL.
That's right.
E-documentation, digitalization of documents. So that's all part of this project, I guess.
That's right. Under the digital corridor, we want to make sure that the shipping companies can be facilitated with paperless documentation. So e-bill of lading, your paperless port clearance systems and documentation, all should be digitalized.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
So the way I see it for digitalization to have the impact that we think it should have, that we want it to have, we talk about ecosystems and data sharing, collaboration. How do you see that from your perspective?
I totally agree with you that ecosystem is a very important piece. In fact, when thinking back 6 years ago when I joined MPA, that was my task by then CE to say, create this innovation ecosystem, which is when I started to look at how do we piece together this innovation ecosystem, because every company and every organization have some pain points, challenge statements.
Yes, of course.
Right? And this challenge statement can be solved today with technology providers, or they could actually be solved through a startup whose technology is emerging and need to scale. The one more piece is actually talent from schools and universities, polytechnic. They could actually look at the challenge statement and look at it from a different perspective. And in fact, after forming all these different parts of the ecosystem, it's like a piece of land that is being fertile. And therefore, you can allow the different flowers to bloom. And in Chinese, there is a word to say 百花齐放, which is to let the 100 flowers bloom in this fertile land of innovation ecosystem.
That's very, very poetic. And thank you for sharing that with us. I'll try and remember that.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having joined us today on this digital talk. I think your insights are super interesting, and I really appreciated the time together.
Thank you so much.